What's up, everybody? My name is Dell. This is Dell on Movies. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you've been here before, thanks for hanging out with me again. This is episode number 2 of Movie Swap, where myself and another collector swap movies, and then we talk about what we saw. And this week's guest is none other than Martinez Joe. Joe, you have the floor. Please introduce yourself.
How you doing? I'm Martinez Joe from the MartinezJoe74 channel. I do a weekly, weekly videos on Saturday mornings, every week on Saturdays at 7 a.m. of different things we pick up, different thrifting hauls that we have, stuff that comes in the mail. We do It Doesn't Make the Shelf videos every month of stuff that we watched that didn't make our shelves. And also we collect vinyl as well, so on Tuesdays every week we have vinyl pickups that we found thrifting or that we picked up from different places as well.
All right, so I'm gonna, before we get into it, I'm gonna just say that I took a little bit of inspiration from you. And I did actually a video a little while ago where I talked about what I was getting rid of. So I know what I did. Like I said, I was kind of copying you, and I had just all this stuff sitting around that I wanted to, that I was going to get rid of. So why not make a video about it? How did you guys decide to start doing that?
It was actually Marie's idea. Marie decided, we constantly are getting rid of stuff. Like this year, we probably got rid of almost 2,300 titles in our collection.
Wow.
That I know. What we get rid of is what some people's full collection is.
No kidding.
But a lot of times I was trading them in and everything else, and I just decided, and Marie was talking that, why don't we give our subscribers first dibs on the stuff? I consider my subscribers like family. So when we do those videos, I do it more to help out other collectors and people that watch our stuff. I don't upcharge anything. I've gotten rid of out of print stuff that was worth $80 for $10 because I know that guy comments every week and he watches every week, just to help somebody else out. And I always look as I like to give back to people. So that's why we started doing it. Okay. I never did it to really even make money. I just did it to help people out that, sometimes just looking for stuff. Because even if I go out thrifting and I see out of print movies that somebody might like, I pick them up and I add them to those videos or on my weekly videos and say, oh, I picked up this copy of this out of print movie. If anybody needs it, leave a comment down below and, I'll ship it to you. Well, wheel and deal. Okay. That's how I like to roll.
Oh, keep it up. All right, so before we get into our movies, let's go ahead and see who is all in the chat. We got a few people out there. Holland Oates, what's up? He says he's ready for the surprise picks. That's because I didn't announce what the movies were. I just told him that Joe was coming. And speaking of Joe, we got a supporter from the other room. Marie says, looking forward to your thoughts. And yep, she says she's supporting from the other room. Hey, Mika. Mika is in the house. And Marie says, this month it didn't make the shelf. Will be a fun one. So I'm looking forward to that. Emmett is asking, what's your real full name? Not sure if he's asking me or you. I think yours is right there in your name, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much Joe Martinez.
Yep, there you go. My full first name is actually Wendell, and last name Otley. And I am and I will let you know, Emmett, that I am a very youthful looking 51.
Yeah, it was weird because when I started doing YouTube, I never thought I would stick around this long. We've been going on over 3 years now that I literally never came up with a name. I went with what I first started with YouTube when it first started was that name. I'm like, I'll probably not stick around. I'll just leave it as Martinez Joe, not knowing. And now it's been so long, it's like I can't change the name. Yeah, I just gotta leave. I gotta leave it as is.
Yeah, you're a brand now. It's not even a name anymore.
Yeah.
Hard Copy Blues is here. What's up? And he says one hell of a media wall back there. Yes, it is. It is amazing back there behind Mr. Joe. And yes, looking forward to that, Marie. So I'm guessing Mika is talking about Thursday night where they have the Lost Girls first stream coming out. So yes, definitely show up and support the Lost Girls. We got Mika, got Marie, we got Sue, Movies and Sue. We got Mel, My Killer Podcast is on her channel. And I'm probably missing 2 or 3 more, but yeah, definitely show up for that, guys.
Yep.
And thank you, Hard Copy Blues. He says I look 30. You know, I try. I thank my mom every day for these genes. Same thing, Meek. I just thank my mom. It's good genes. It's all her fault. She did it to me. And was the battle against Jagoda Blue my first loss? I'm guessing he says he's speaking to me because I don't know if you battled Jagoda or not.
I've never battled Jagoda.
Okay, I did, and that was actually my second loss. I lost to someone else earlier, and we were talking backstage about being on the spot and forgetting things, and that's what I'm doing. I'm forgetting things now. So let's go ahead and get into the movies here. So, Joe, I'm going to let you intro your movie first, and basically just 2 questions for you. Really, what's your movie? 2 questions to start, and not really a question, but it's tell me about the first time you saw it, your experience with it.
The movie that I picked originally, it's going to be a little bit of a story. Originally, when we first talked about it, he sent me a list of movies. The movie that I picked, and I'm going to show it because I showed it on a Saturday video. It was actually called Martha, Marcy, May, and Marlene. And that was the movie I was supposed to do. But when I put this movie in my player, and literally every player in the house, it was just flat, no menu, no nothing. It would not work. And it was brand new sealed. So I went on Amazon, I reordered it, and it actually showed up today. So I never got to watch this. So I actually had to talk to Dell to actually give me another movie. So he gave me another list. And the movie that I picked is One Night in Miami from 2020. That's it right there.
All right. So yeah,
I didn't even know that there was a physical for that.
Yeah, it came out on Criterion last year, I think. They put it on Criterion. So
I'm gonna have to buy it.
Yeah, I believe it was last year. And Regina King was the director, and I'll give a quick synopsis for anybody who's not seen it. And well, actually, we're going a little bit backwards because I was going to talk about the Nightingale first, but let's go ahead and run with it. So I'll ask share why I recommend this movie since I'll pose that question to me. And I saw it not long after it came out because it's an Amazon movie. Amazon Studios made it. And I was familiar with the story. It's loosely based on a true story. So after first won the heavyweight championship of the world, and yes, I'm kind of repping Muhammad Ali tonight. He did go into a hotel room. He did spend some time in a hotel room with some other influential figures, Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown. And they did spend a lot of time there chit-chatting. Now, the details of what they spoke about is not as known. I mean, they would know, but only one that's still alive right now is Jim Brown. And I don't think he's telling as much. So the story is really about them and opposing point of views and how they should deal with certain things. And the biggest topic at hand is whether or not Muhammad Ali, or soon to become Muhammad Ali, he was actually Cassius Clay at the time, should actually become a Muslim. That was like the overall story, but it wasn't the only story. So I will leave overall. I really like this movie. So again, that's why I recommended it to Joe. And Joe, just kind of a quick overview. What do you think about One Night in Miami?
I really enjoyed it. I remember when the movie was first announced, I was really interested in watching it for the main reason is I'm a huge Sam Cooke fan, and because he was in it, I really wanted to watch it. And I never saw any trailers on. I'm not a big trailer guy, and I was really interested in this movie. So when uh, you mentioned this in your list, I was like, I really wanted to check this one out. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, um, I thought everybody in that film just did an amazing job. I thought the guy who played Sam Cooke, though, his name was Leslie Odom. I thought he was the most consistent in that film, as an actor. But Kingsley, that played Malcolm X, I thought every time he was on the screen, it was really mesmerizing the way he was and the way he talked in that film. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I completely agree. First time I saw it, like I said, was a couple years ago, and
Hmm.
his performance, Kingsley's performance, kind of blew me out the water. And so nobody else really seemed to stand out for me. But this time rewatching it, I agree. Leslie Odom was just as good, and
Yeah.
he was very consistent. Not sure if you're familiar with him, but he kind of rose to fame through Hamilton, the
Yeah.
play.
Hmm.
Um, so he's definitely equipped to do the singing, any singing that Sam Cooke would have to do. But yeah, he was really good. And even this time, I found some the guy who played Muhammad Ali. I thought his performance was really good.
Yeah.
Um, the only kind of drawback I had, no, not drawback, not Aldous Hodge. He wasn't bad, but he was just kind of outshined. He was in the Jim Brown role, and I think part of that's just the way the story was written. So
Yes. I agree the same thing. The person that I thought was the best in it was Regina King. That was Malcolm X's wife in the movie. I thought she actually, when she was on screen, she really shined, and I thought she was amazing in the film. But because the film is not pretty much, to do with her, it was more her shown at the beginning of more of a backstory of all the four people that were in the film before they went to the hotel room. But I thought when she was on film, she was very captivating.
yeah, and yeah, the story it doesn't focus on her at all. But she made the most of the screen time that she had.
Hmm.
Um, and for Regina King, it was her first time as a director.
Yep.
And so, well, I'll give my thoughts in a second. How do you think she did as a director?
I thought she did really well. I thought it was good. The only thing, and I don't know if it's because of the way it was written. One Night in Miami originally was a play
Right.
before it was ever a movie. So when you're watching it, it comes off more as watching a play than watching a movie. I think if she made it a little bit more cinematic, I think it maybe would have. I don't know. I think it would have grabbed you a little bit more. I still, with the actors, with what they had and with the great story that they had and the way it was written, I thought they did really well with it. But I think if they made it a little bit more of a cinematic kind of film, it would have had a lot more emotion behind it when you're watching it. My opinion.
Yeah, I actually agree, and that's kind of where I was going with it. It drags a bit in the middle for me, and
Hmm.
that it definitely feels like you're watching a play.
Yeah.
So, and I think it was more cinematic right at the beginning, and anytime that they got to be outside the hotel room,
Hmm.
it came off a little bit better.
Yeah.
But the long stretches in the room kind of made it drag a little bit in the middle,
Hmm.
and it's a all dialogue movie. This is not there're not action scenes.
No.
Um, yeah, there's not sex. It's just dialogue all the way through it. Sometimes it gets heated, sometimes it's not so heated. So it's really on the actor's shoulders to make it work.
Yeah. To carry the film.
Right, right. So they had to be strong, and I thought they were all strong. But yeah,
Hmm.
I agree completely. Though it wasn't quite as cinematic as it needed to be to completely hook you. So
Yeah.
so this viewing for me, like I said, my second wasn't quite as good as the first time, but I still enjoyed this movie a lot.
Yeah. There was a speech that Malcolm X did in the middle of the film that I thought was really well done. That pretty much without spoiling the movie, it's when he if you'll know the movie, he pulls up a record and he says, this white man's talking more about the movement than you are,
Right,
because Sam Cooke is writing love songs and he goes, you're not, you know, doing anything about making a change.
right,
And he says, well, I have a song I'm working on, but I really never played it.
right.
But
Now that I agree that to me was maybe the strongest part of the movie was that
mhm,
little scene right there,
yeah,
and it really kind of drove things home as far as what he was trying to accomplish and what he was trying to get Sam Cooke to see.
yeah,
Um, so I really grabbed onto that moment as well. Um, Another moment that kind of grabbed me was actually going back to Jim Brown was right at the beginning when he
mhm,
went and saw the old guy at the house,
yeah.
and
When
he
Yeah, when he was on the porch.
yeah, when he's on the porch and guys, they're praising him for all he's done in football and how they're big fans of his and they're just chit chatting and having a good time. And he offers to help. Jim Brown offers to help the older guy move some furniture because apparently he's got something to move in there.
Yeah,
And I'm just gonna paraphrase. I'm not gonna say it, but he says, "No, no, no, you stay out here because we don't allow your kind in the house."
yeah.
And
But he didn't
it
say your kind.
right. He didn't say your kind.
Yeah,
He used
but
another word,
yeah,
and that it just kind of drove home for me. Especially at that time, um, you can do all of these things, but you're still seen a certain way.
exactly.
Yeah. So that
Yeah,
was
because
one. Go ahead.
I was gonna say because this film for us talking about it, it's pretty much filmed in 1965. So if
Right.
anybody knows how 1965 was, it shows a lot of the oppression that a lot of people had at that time. So that's why, they were trying to pretty much take four well-known people at that time to try to make a change for how things were going to be later on without I'm trying to dance around it without spoiling the film.
Without spoiling it. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. I'm over here tiptoeing through the tulips.
Right. Now, I will say for this movie though, it's not one that spoilers are, to be honest, are not going to ruin anything for you.
Hmm.
Um, because it's not like a twisty kind of movie where it's a big surprise coming out of nowhere. And if you're familiar with particularly if you're familiar with Muhammad Ali, you know how the story goes.
Hmm.
Um, so I'll say it's not one that you have to tiptoe too much.
Yeah.
It's more about the interactions than it is, what
Hmm.
actually happens at the end.
Correct.
All right. Um, just we're going to continue a little bit with this movie, but just to see who's still out here, Hard Copy Blues. He says, want to grab this during the next Criterion sale. Sounds very interesting. I definitely recommend it.
I
Uh,
recommend it as well.
yep. Mika Regina King did a great job directing. Looking forward to seeing more from her. Just as a side note for Regina King, and hopefully she's doing well. But her son committed suicide last year. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, not long after her Netflix movie came out,
Hmm.
The Harder They Fall. It
Yeah.
was like weeks after that came out, and then the news broke that he had committed suicide. And I hadn't really seen or heard too much from her since. I mean, her commercials, I can't remember what commercials they are, but they run all the time. But other than that, I really haven't seen too much from her. So hopefully she's going to get back into the swing of things. I know she's got a movie coming out later this year where she's going to play Shirley Chisholm. Are you familiar with Shirley Chisholm, Joe?
No, I am not.
She was the first African American congresswoman, and
Okay.
she also ran for president. This is back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So Regina King is going to play her in I believe it's a Netflix movie.
I like to see that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that myself. Mika, she just a double post there. And Marie, I enjoyed it as well, and love Sam Cooke's music. So, speaking of Sam Cooke's music, there it could have been more of it. That might have helped the movie even more.
Yeah, it could have. I think it could have brought a different audience to maybe watch the film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he was, I'm not saying he was big for his time. I think he could have been a lot bigger if he wasn't killed.
Yes.
But I've always been a fan of his music. I was the one who actually got Marie into Sam Cooke. You know,
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I've always been a big fan of soul music. So, Sam Cooke, Otis, all that. I just love listening to it. I listen to it literally every day.
Cool. There is a documentary also on Netflix about Sam Cooke and how or when he was killed. They called, I think it's The Two Killings of Sam Cooke or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was pretty good. I don't know if you had a chance to see that.
No, because I don't have Netflix.
Okay.
But I'm dying to watch it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not on physical anywhere, but it may be somewhere out there.
I'm hoping like Tubi would get it.
They might. Yeah, Tubi might get it. Mika says she returned to Instagram. She just returned to Instagram talking about Regina King. So yeah, more of Sam Cooke. Maybe more of Ali outside in the outside world, dealing with especially dealing with the business partners that we talk about but never see.
Yeah.
Maybe that could have added something also to the movie.
And kind of like what you were saying earlier about Jim Brown, I think out of everybody that was in there, I think Jim Brown was like the least talked about throughout that whole film, except for that one early scene in the beginning. Besides that, he kind of like faded into obscurity throughout the whole film. Even at the beginning, a lot of his story, if you didn't really know who he was, you didn't really know what was going on with him.
Yeah, he's kind of, he'll pop up, just be the voice of reason every now and again.
Yeah.
But then he's mostly just kind of off to the sidelines.
Yeah.
And he's a really interesting character. I think it's going to be real, taken out of the movie for a minute. It's going to be real complicated when he passes away, if and when there's going to be a biopic about him, because he's got so many good things and so many bad things that he's done in his life.
Yeah.
So exactly. It's going to be real interesting. But as far as the movie goes, he just kind of, skirts off to the sidelines, and every now and again, like I say, he'll pop up and be the voice of reason.
Yeah. I think because Sam Cooke and Muhammad Ali are such, what's the word I'm looking for? They're so personable. They're always talking. They're always, especially Muhammad Ali, the way he was just a trash talker. So I think because of that, they pretty much outshined anybody else because of the type of dialogue they were in real life. So Jim Brown's more of a, even later in his life, he's always been a quiet guy. He's not, like you said, he's more seen and not heard.
Yes, he definitely is that. And I thought it was really funny, though, one of the early scenes when they first got into the room and talking about Ali's personality versus Jim Brown's, and Ali's, he's bouncing up and down on the bed, and he's basically just bouncing off the walls in this room, and Jim Brown's like, what are you, a big baby? What is going on here? I thought that was pretty pretty interesting.
Yeah. It was.
All right. So let's I think we're both in agreement that we did enjoy the movie. And you actually answered this question sort of. But if you want to go into a little more in depth, and that question is, would you recommend it to someone else, and why or why not?
I would recommend it to other people. I thought it was a well done film. Like I said, I haven't rewatched it like you, but when I get the physical, I will. But I thought it was really good. I thought the story was well done. Like I said, it shows more as a play than a cinematic film. But I think because of what the movie represents and what the movie was actually about, pretty much about the civil rights movement of the 60s. I think it's something that people should watch because you know in this day and age with cancel culture and everything else and how people are trying to erase what the past is. I think movies like this are always good to watch to see where we came from. You shouldn't be ashamed of the things that happened and the things that were done. You should, as I say, learn from your mistakes. So I always enjoy films like this, that have a point and a story to show of how things used to be.
Okay, okay, and I'm on the same wavelength right there. Now, for me, I would caution some people. I'd be careful about who I recommend it to, not because of the content, but just because of the style of storytelling. It is
Hmm.
just it's all dialogue, and I know some people will check out of that.
Hmm.
So I might be cautious of I wouldn't really recommend it. For instance, to my brother who's an action junkie,
Yeah,
he would make it about 15 minutes and then he'd be like, okay, I'm done. I
yeah,
can't.
and I was gonna say that's one of the things I want to mention is this movie is almost 2 hours long, but
Yes.
I thought the pacing. That 2 hours went quick. I thought the pacing on the film, like you said, there's a little bit of a slow spot in the middle, but throughout the film, that 2 hours went quick because when the
Yeah.
when the end came, I was like, wow, it's already done.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a tribute to the writing too, because they kept the conversations intense enough and even varied enough where it's not always just intense, where there's moments where, they're having a little more fun and then they kind of
Hmm.
amp up again and then they go off into another area. So I think the writing really helped the pacing.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, the director and the editor, of course, and all that. But
Yeah,
they made sure that it was pretty tight.
yeah. And I was gonna say the person who wrote this was the same person who wrote the movie Soul for Disney. And
Hmm.
you could kind of tell that person has a certain style, the way they write. And because even Soul, I really enjoyed that film. And I just, like I said, those long movies, the pacing with Soul and with this was well done enough that it kept you intrigued throughout the whole entire film.
Yeah, yes, it did. And I didn't know that that was the same guy that wrote it. And I also really enjoyed Soul. I really had a good time with that.
Hmm.
So I was definitely glad to see that movie. Um,
Hmm.
all right. So before we move on, let's see what's going on into the chat before we go into the other movie. And
Let me grab something real quick.
sure, go for it. I'll just talk to these guys a minute. And Hard Copy Blues also loves Otis Redding. Do you guys have the Jimmy and Otis play Monterey criterion? I do not. I'll ask Joe when he gets back. I don't really have any music criterions. I know a lot of people do. I don't have any concert ones. I want to plug one that's not in the Criterion collection and hard to get in America. You can get it from overseas or pay a lot of money for it. And that is Prince Sign of the Times concert. I'm a big Prince fan, so I would love to see that one come to the Criterion collection. And now that Joe is back, I'm going to go ahead and ask him this question. I don't, Joe, but the question is, do you have the Jimmy and Otis play Monterey criterion?
No, I do not. I am going to get it. I have a lot of. I have. I think I have it on DVD, and I have a lot of vinyl and CDs, but I don't have the Criterion to that one yet. But I will be getting it.
Okay, cool. Now, since you brought up the vinyl, correct me if I'm wrong. It was just a couple of months ago you got back into vinyl.
Yep.
And then a couple hundred already, something like that.
Yeah. It's some, like I said, as you can see how I collect. I started collecting vinyl on September 9th of last year when I went to Savers and I found 3 soundtracks. And that snowballed into right now, as of today, I have 386 records.
Wow.
Since then. And I have spent over 5 figures since I started collecting on vinyl alone. That I literally have some vinyls that I spent close to $250 for one record.
Man, what record was that? I gotta ask.
It was 9 Inch Nails Downward Spiral. That's a promo first pressing release. It's never been re-released. It's a white label that says promotional. It's like a pro, like with a movie, promotional use only, not for resale. It was for a record for a radio station, and that's how it ended up. And like I said, I bought it out of Canada for $246 and $26 to ship it here.
Wow.
But, yeah, but like I said, I've spent some money. When I first started collecting, I was like, I'm going to be like Plaid. I'm not going to spend more than $5. Then within the first week, I was $20 out of whack. Then I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay $20 to $40. Week later, I'm buying $80, $100 records. So,
wow. Yeah, well, that's how collecting goes. It's tough sticking to a budget.
Yeah, I just started going by. I collect how I collect with movies. That it comes down to what is it worth to me.
Right.
A lot of movies that I have, I don't always buy the 4K. I don't always buy the Blu-ray. Sometimes I just buy the DVD. It comes down to what type of movie it is. Like you said, if it's a huge cinematic action movie, I want it in the best quality. But if it's sometimes a dialogue heavy, low budget kind of film, to me, a DVD is just fine. If I really like it that much that I'm going to rewatch it multiple times, I might upgrade it later on if I find it cheap. Some movies I don't buy on release day. To me, I'll like Halloween Ends. I was like, I want to see it, but I don't $20 want to see it or even $30 want to see it. When I find it for under $10, I'll buy it. And I went on Whatnot and I found a 4K with the slip with no digital for $8, and I bought it.
Well, I believe it. That's going to be one of those. I think there are going to be a lot of them around because I think they pressed a whole lot of those. So they're going to show up all over the place. Go through a few more comments before we move on. Emmett, do you think you can go up against Alex Thomas on the movie collection battle? Sure, I'm up for anybody. I'm sure Joe is up to go against anybody. It'd be up to Alex in 4K D-Ray, who runs that channel. Shout out to him. Go subscribe to him if you haven't, and to Alex, and of course to Joe. Mika, yes, the film is very dialogue driven, so you have to enjoy that type of film. Agreed completely. Yep. Cyborg Eichhoff, I believe that's how you say it. This first time here that I've seen his name, or her, I'm not sure. But thank you for being here. This is What's Up, Dudes. Big fan here. Is anyone picking up the 4K Brokeback Mountain Steel Tent Edition? I've not heard of that. I know Brokeback Mountain. I've seen the movie.
I've seen the movie many times. I have the Blu-ray. That's a movie to me. I would stick with just the Blu-ray.
Right. I don't have that movie. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest with you. I found it kind of boring, to be honest. So I don't have it, and I wouldn't be buying that. Marie says, hold the phone. Wait, 5 figures? Oh, did you just break some news, Joe? To the missus?
Well, she sees every time I do vinyl videos. I'm like, oh, I paid $40 for this. I paid $80 for this. I paid this and that. But I never go of how much have I spent total.
Oh, I got you. I got you. So you guys might need to do like Ken and his wife and do an audit video.
Oh boy. I'll be like Scrooge McDuck with the long paper.
Hard copy blues. That's the best way to be. Not being a slave to marketing and packaging. I'm working on that. Doing better. I've only bought like 2 movies this month.
That's
So
great.
I bought only a few, but nothing new. I take that back. I did buy Belly, the 4K of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I bought a couple of new ones, but I think it's only 4 because I just posted on Instagram everything I had for the month.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I only bought 4 from Best Buy, but everything else, and I've said it in my videos, and I'll climb the highest mountain and bring it up. People have to start using Whatnot. I know a lot of people use eBay, Mercari, this and that. Whatnot is a live auction website that they do literally live auctions all the time.
Okay.
And there's a guy on there called Undead Media, and he's the one that literally sells brand new releases within a week later with no codes, and you can get them dirt cheap. I bought Bullet Train for him on 4K for under $8. Halloween Ends. I got the ET Target exclusive Steelbook for $6. I bought that new movie Tar with Cate Blanchett. I got that for $5 when it's $22 at Best Buy. So, it's like I've said to other people, I don't have the biggest channel because I don't do the new releases and I don't do the Tuesday Blues Day shopping videos, but I've never been that type of collector. I look for the deals. To have a collection like this, you got to find deals.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I agree. I don't do the Tuesday Blues Day thing either. Jerry is in the building. What's up, Jerry? Thanks for being here.
How we doing, Jerry?
Yep. Evan asked, "What's our thoughts on the Saw movies?" I like the first couple. I like them, but they're just when I'm in the mood for something gory.
Yeah,
Basically.
I like them all. Spiral I liked, but Spiral was the only one that I literally called it from right within 15 minutes of the movie. I knew what the ending was. I enjoy them.
Something crazy. I actually bought Spiral when it first hit. I bought the Steelbook, and I still have not seen that movie. So wow. I guess I got to get on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Marie says all day pass on Audivid. Save those for Ken and Michelle. Mika has to check out Whatnot. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that too. And Marie, Whatnot could be considered a gateway drug. It's addicting for Joe.
It is. It's addicting because I buy most 90% of my vinyl and 80% of my movies I get on Whatnot, because even like Films at Home started going on Whatnot, and anything that doesn't make his shelf or review copies that he gets that he doesn't like the movie, he does Whatnot auctions and sells them just to buy better releases of stuff that he wants. So okay. It's a good place also if you want to sell stuff and you want to set up an account.
Okay. All right. I've heard about it, but until you just explained it, I really didn't know what it was.
So, it's like I said, it's addicting and easy because once you start following people and you start getting the notifications, oh, this person went live and this person went live. When you win an auction, it automatically takes the money out of your PayPal within seconds, and within 2 days, that stuff is already being shipped out to you, and it's so easy because it's just like paddle auctions. It's so fun doing live auctions.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get into the other movie. And the other movie that I picked from Joe's list of movies, and he did go get it. It is Nightingale, and I'll let you go ahead and introduce it from there, Joe.
Well, Nightingale is a 2018 film directed by Jennifer Kent that did The Babadook. So this is her second directorial debut, and the movie is pretty much an 1825 film Based in 1825, pretty much Tasmania, that was pretty much a prison island for the British. That pretty much they took all their prisoners and shipped them to Tasmania, Australia, as a prison. And it's pretty much about the atrocities and how those countries were back then, because it was pretty much a free for all of what was going on, and pretty much how Australia and Tasmania was actually, settled. They have a really dark history of how all of that became.
Yes, indeed, they do. So why recommend the movie?
Um, Similar to what you said, kind of like One Night in Miami. To me, I'm not a historical person when it comes to movies. I've never been, especially period pieces. I'm not into The Witch. I like Braveheart, but I'm not into the Gladiator film or anything like that. For some reason, when I watched this movie, and the only reason I watched it is because it was Jennifer Kent directing it, and I loved The Babadook. And I didn't know it was a period piece, and I didn't know it was based on, how things were back then. And a lot of it is actual factual, that they actually had generations that they used to pretty much reenact how it was, and even the language of how people talked back then. That it's a word that I'm not going to use the word, but it's a word that starts with C, that if you go to Australia, it's a big word that's used over there to this day. But it's not a big word that people in the US use. And even back then, that was, that's like every other word in somebody's vocabulary. But I think, again, it's a good movie to watch to see how that country became and how everything happened. Um, when I first watched it, I thought it was going to be a revenge film. I'm big into revenge films. I pretty much buy anything that's a revenge film.
Mhm.
But the movie when you first sit down and watch it, you think it's a revenge film, and you think it's going to be a cat and mouse kind of film. But as you watch it, that's no, it's not what the film's about. It's a totally different film once from what it's perceived at to what you actually see.
Okay. Um, so let's get into the plot real quick. So you mentioned it might be a revenge film, and that's because the way it's set up. We meet our main character Claire, and she is one of the prisoners on this island, and she's made to work in I guess a saloon or a bar or whatever you would call it, where a lot of the soldiers are partying, and the main soldier, the that we meet, and I had his name written down here, and I just forgot it right now. But anyway, he's the biggest jerk by far, and he takes advantage of her, and there is a rape, and then she goes home. She's actually married. She has a small baby, and 10 minutes later, basically the sergeant shows back up with his crew, and there's another rape. So this is like the first 15 minutes, we get two of these, and I see some people in the comments who've seen it, and it's a tough, brutal watch. And there's something else that happens during that that's even more brutal than the rape. It's made me cringe when I saw it. It made me physically jump when
The
it
first,
happened.
the first 20, it's 22 minutes. The first 22 minutes of that movie, like I said, because it's so brutal, I know it's 22 minutes. The first 22 minutes of that movie is a tough watch. But if you can
Right.
get through the first 22 minutes, it's a beautiful film
Okay.
after that.
So after those 22 minutes, basically what happens is she's going to get her revenge because she survives her, and she decides that I'm gonna go get this guy. Uh, she doesn't know the landscape particularly well, so she hires an Aborigine. Uh, if you're not familiar with the Aborigines at all, Basically, all of the prisoners that were brought there from Britain were basically British, Irish, and any of the colonies that Great Britain had in Europe at the time. They were
Hmm.
people from there, and that's pretty much how Australia was populated. And the Aborigines are basically the natives who were there, and they were largely darker skinned. Um, so then they were kind of pushed to the outskirts. And so she hires an Aborigine gentleman named Billy, and then they go set about trying to find this guy who's off on some other mission.
Hmm.
Um, so I'll say this for the movie. Yeah, after those first 22 minutes, it definitely settles down. Even though when there is violence, it is still pretty brutal, still pretty tough.
Hmm.
Um, what did you think about about Claire as a character overall?
I thought Claire. I thought the three main characters, Claire, Billy, and the lead British soldier.
Yeah.
I thought they all did a fantastic job. I thought she played that role so well. Billy, I thought was amazing because and that was his first movie that he ever acted in. And like I said, the British soldier, I hated that guy. Watching that movie, I wanted to jump through the screen and kill him myself. I mean, I thought they all portrayed so well that Claire, even in Australia, the Australian Oscars, that movie won Best Picture that year, and Claire won Best Actress that year for
Okay.
that film.
Okay. I didn't know that. She was really good, and like you said, the bad guy, he definitely did his job because he definitely made you hate him. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Hmm.
And he does some heinous things all the way through the movie.
Yeah.
Um, so we got those guys. Now I will say this for me personally. So I had some reservations about the movie when I watched it. The first thing you brought up, that kind of a revenge flick, and when I picked it off of your list, I just kind of skimmed the synopsis, and I was like, okay, so I was expecting kind of a True Grit kind of thing, where
Hmm.
she's with she hired somebody to go help her, and she did. She hired somebody to go help her, but the power dynamics between them was definitely a lot different than True Grit.
Yeah.
So my main reservation watching the movie all the way through was that Billy, even though he himself did a really good job, he was right down the line as far as a certain trope goes. And if you're familiar with the noble savage trope, are you familiar with that?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So for me, he was right down that line. And as soon as he appeared and she hired him, I was like, okay, I know what's going to happen now. This is what's going to happen. And that's pretty much the way it played out.
Yeah.
Um, so that,
Because
go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, because without spoiling the movie, because this is a movie that I think is important to watch, and it can't. It's a movie that, like I said, there's a lot of twists and turns that it
Uh-huh.
goes from a revenge style film to a more cat and mouse. But as you're watching the film, to me, what the film's more about is pretty much about togetherness and two people with loss. That, the loss that Claire had, and Billy, the loss that he had with, you know, the British coming and the Aborigines, what became of them. That they were pretty much, they weren't even as good as animals to those people.
Right.
That, and, even Claire, when she first met Billy, she was a huge racist towards him, that
Right.
she hated him. And, you know, the dynamic between them two is what, to me, what carries that film.
Right. They definitely spent a lot of time on it. Um,
Hmm.
they definitely try to get it to the point where what happens in the end makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, and on some level it does, and in some levels I was like, I'm not quite buying it. But just really the overall thing about how they were treated, how the Aborigines were treated, and then yeah, how Claire's mindset kind of changed as the movie went on. I thought that
Hmm.
worked. I thought that worked pretty well. And we talked about pacing with One Night in Miami. This movie was longer than 2 hours,
Yes, it was
and,
longer than 2 hours.
and I thought it was excellently paced because by the end of that, I was like, yeah, that didn't feel like it took that long.
Yeah,
So
because I think that movie is. I think Nightingale. I have it right here next to me. Why am I trying to guess? And I could, and because
like
I'm blind, let me get my magnifying glass.
understood.
But 136 minutes. So it's 2 hours and 16 minutes.
Right. And it definitely went by. It definitely went by pretty quickly.
Hmm.
So, and you mentioned the Babadook, same director as the Babadook. I'm a huge fan of the Babadook also.
Hmm.
Um, so it's I can see some of her style in this movie as well.
Yeah,
So at least from the Babadook, I can see some of the same kinds of things, even though they're two totally different movies set in different times. But you can see some
exactly.
of her style, and
Yeah,
it.
go ahead.
Oh, I was really just gonna leave it kind of there. Did you?
What I was gonna say, another thing that I really liked is what we talked about one night in Miami and about this one is I love the cinematography in this one. Of how she directed it with everything. There was so much outdoor scenes because of her going through the forest.
Mhm.
There is no soundtrack to this movie. There is no music in this movie.
Not really,
It's
no.
it's pretty much it's there's music as there's somebody singing that, again, not spoiling the film, but there's no soundtrack to it. There's the nature that you hear, the quiet that you hear. You know it the way all of that was done. I just thought it was so beautifully done throughout the film. And similar to what you were saying, um when she first meets up with the first British soldier, she after everything that happened, she realized that that's when it kind of shifted from a revenge film to something else, because she realizes that, you know, no matter what she does to these people, she's still going to have that loss. It's never going to go away. You know, she's never going to feel better about what happened by getting any revenge towards these people. So that's when you start seeing the shift dynamic throughout the film. It's once that scene happens.
Right, right. Okay. And I'm glad you brought that up because that kind of helps me a little bit. Because like I said, when I was watching it, I was kind of hyper focused on just Billy and Claire's relationship and the power dynamics within the relationship. And
Hmm.
like sometimes that didn't always jive for me. But
Hmm.
here you give that perspective helps it a bit. Now cinematography, I'm gonna have to admit this. What I saw, I thought was really good, but I didn't see as much as I should have. And let me
Hmm.
explain that. The reason why is I streamed it, and for some reason, when I streamed it, it was like the sides were cut off basically on my picture,
Yeah. Okay.
so it wasn't as wide open as it should have been. And I thought, had it been wide open, because it would have helped the look of the movie better for me. And
Yeah,
that's
because I was gonna say the Blu-ray, when if you have the Blu-ray, it's completely wide open on the screen.
right, right. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. Um, because yeah, what I saw, it looked pretty good, and some of the shots, well, that's a pretty nice shot, but with it being cut off like that, I didn't get the full effect of the
Hmm.
cinematography. So I thought it was pretty good, but I'm hearing you say that it is really good, so
Hmm.
I can definitely appreciate that. Um, what did you think about not the main bad guy, but his accomplices, his cronies, the guys that were kind of riding with him all the time?
Um, I thought I don't know. I feel like with them, I, the main guy is the one to me that rode that bus, and I think they just kind of followed along with them or what they were doing. I think some of them enjoyed what was going on, but I think a lot of the people that he was with were doing it just to pretty much um like stay pretty much like stay with him, that you're not going to be exiled if you're like, I don't agree with this, and end up being dead. So I think, I wasn't when I watched it, I wasn't super hyper focused on those people. I felt like some of them wanted to do it, some of them didn't. I
Mhm.
felt like, it was pretty much that main guy that pretty much rode that bus, because even in the earlier scenes that we talked about during the 22 minutes,
Right.
um a lot of those people, when you saw them, they were really nervous, they were uncomfortable with everything that was going on, and that guy was pretty much the puppeteer.
Right. Especially the younger guy that was with him.
Yes.
He was really uncomfortable.
Hmm.
For me now, you going back to how Australia was formed and how colonization works in general.
Hmm.
He kind of represented for me like, hey, okay, here's some people that we know that what the higher ups is doing is not right, but we're not going to say anything because of what you said. We're not going to be exiled. We're not going to put ourselves in jeopardy, even though what they're doing isn't right.
Yeah,
So
it's like, even nowadays, it's like I tell Maurice sometimes, you never rock the boat that you're sitting in, because sooner or later you're going to get wet.
very wise saying. Very that is a very wise saying, and very true saying. So it happens so much, um, and I thought that character really he really portrayed that well and represented that well. So
Hmm.
even after he did things and his conscience started to get the better of him.
Hmm.
So I thought that was a real interesting. Uh, And let's take a break for just a second. Let's see what the people out here saying. We got about 5 people. We got up to as many as I think 7 or 8. And I appreciate all you guys for being here. And
I
go
appreciate it as
ahead,
well.
yeah. And if you're not subbed to Joe, go ahead and do so. He's got a fantastic channel. You can see all the stuff behind him. He's got a monster collection. And not just movies. He talked about vinyl a little earlier. He's got a lot of vinyl. He's got some other things going on too. And I remember from our battle, we had statues and all sorts of stuff going on. So
Hmm.
definitely sub up to Joe and sub to each other. We got a lot of people, the people in the chat have channels. So go ahead and sub up to each other because we got a lot of great ones out here. And Hard Copy Blues, he says, I'm a small YouTube channel and I used to do haul vids, but I actually removed almost all the haul vids from my channel recently. I'll do them going forward for boutique label orders, but that's it.
Hmm.
And I'm I'm similar. I don't do haul videos at all. I've never done one. I don't not one where I go out and do a haul, but if I buy something, I'll, hey, look, this is what I bought, but that's not like a focus of mine. So I understand that and that, but I did, like, for instance, do a Criterion collection video, and I'll probably do one again after the summer sale in July, and
Yeah.
same for Arrow and things like that. So
Yeah, the only thing I don't do on my channel, as as even with this, when you first asked me to do this, I was nervous as hell, because I am not a reviewer. I look at it as there's so many people that are better at doing reviews than I am. That's one thing I've always stayed away from.
all right. Well, I mean, I don't consider this a review. I'm sure some people would. It's just two guys
Hmm.
chatting about movies.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I like to do. Holland Oates says you picked the Nightingale. Oh my lord! So Holland, let me know. Do you like the Nightingale or do you not like the Nightingale? If you've seen it, it sounds like you have seen it. Um,
Hmm.
and I'll when we get to a little further along, I'll give my complete thoughts on it, or a little more complete thoughts. Mika, Nightingale is a tough watch, yeah, especially those first 22 minutes. Like I said, I physically recoiled when during that one moment, well, a couple of moments, because we talked about the rapes, and right during that, I was already kind of taken aback. Just and then the other thing happened, and I was really just kind
Taking
of,
it back.
yeah, really taken aback after that. Hard Copy Blues, Nightingale is a brutal, most evil antagonist ever. LOL. Yes, he's really good. Really enjoy it. So go ahead. He's already answered my question. Great pick. Tough watch though.
Hmm.
And yeah, I fully agree with that. It is definitely a tough watch. I guess I don't enjoy it, but it's powerful. I understand that.
It's a movie that's not for everybody. I would say if you're strong, watch the film, but it's not a movie for everyone. Because even like with you, there was two movies I put on that list that are at the cusp of going like the movies that you don't like,
Right.
the Salos and but two movies I put on that list are like right there that to me, if it wasn't for the story and how I felt important the film was, I wouldn't have put them on the list. But
Right.
I felt like The Nightingale and the other film that I put on there are powerful enough films that even though it's a brutal watch, I thought that there's a it's not in there just to be in there. It has to be in there to tell that story.
Right. Right.
That's how I look at it.
Right. And for me, a movie like the Salos and some of those kind of things, like Human Centipede, I'm not against gore or even some kind of extreme things, but if there is a line, it's like at some point, it's like, you know what, I don't really need to see that. All right.
Yeah.
So Mika says she agrees with Hard Copy Blues. It was hard for me to watch. She says. Holland Oates, I enjoy the Billy character from what I remember. So it's been a while since he's watched it. And he says, this is currently in my Amazon cart, about to pull that trigger, $13.99.
Pull it.
Pull it. And Marie, yes, agreed. First 22 minutes. And Hard Copy Blues is only beautiful because of how hard the first act is. Okay, I'm buying it. LOL. And he says both films she tackles the idea of processing grief. Absolutely. So for
Yes.
yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of what I was getting at when I mentioned her style. She's definitely focused on this woman who's processing the grief that she's dealing with.
Hmm.
And for me, the Babadook was just brilliant in that area. When the movie ended, some people didn't like the ending, and I thought it's because they took the ending too literal
Yeah.
and not really, not thinking a little bit outside the box. But I thought that was a brilliant movie.
That yeah, that and to me, that movie was marketed wrong because the Babadook, everybody thought it was going to be like the Boogeyman or something like that. So they thought it was, like a character that came out of the book and was like a slasher kind of movie or something.
Yes, yes,
So it was because the way it was marketed, people went into that movie and they didn't really give it a chance. And because they looked at it as they thought it was this, but it was really that. So they was just like, this movie is horrible. But to me, I with like I said, with the two movies that she done, I love Jennifer Kent, and any movie that she does, I'll watch because just her style, and she has the courage to do films that most people wouldn't do.
yeah, definitely. And for the Babadook, I can definitely say it was mismarketed because, like you said, even when I started to watch, I was like, okay, this is not what I thought it was. It's not a slasher type movie. It's not the boogeyman coming out of this book. But nonetheless, I saw the horror in it, but it was more psychological horror. It wasn't,
Yeah.
in your face and a lot of blood and guts and killing going on. So I definitely see that was mismarketed. For this movie, I vaguely remember when it came out. and it was one I'd heard some good things about for the Nightingale, but I just never saw it, and then I didn't hear
Hmm.
much about it after a few months, so I kind of forgot about it until you put it on your list. So I was glad for that. Hard Copy Blue says it was shot in 4:3 on purpose, he believes, and that makes sense. And I think part of it might have been the time of night I was watching it too, so I wasn't like
Hmm.
completely clear eyed when I was watching it. So
Yeah.
if whenever I can brace myself for those infamous 22 minutes, I might watch it again to
Yeah.
give it a better look. Hard Copy Blues has got a split, but I really enjoyed this. Two guys talking movies more in depth, subbing to you both. Thank you, Hard Copy Blues, so much. Really
Thank you, sir.
appreciate it. All right, so let's go ahead and let me give my final thoughts kind of on the movie. To start, I'll say it is really well done. You mentioned the cinematography already, and I mentioned the pacing. And if you're looking for violence and brutality in that violence, this definitely has that. But it is a story. It is trying to tell more of a story than just show you gory things.
Yeah.
So even those, after those first 22 minutes, we get more into that story. So I enjoyed that about it. I did, like I said before, have some reservations, so I probably don't rate it quite as high as you do. And that deals with that trope, the noble savage. And it was like, because I pegged the movie as soon as he came on the screen, it was like, okay, I know what he's going to do. I already know how this is going to play out at the end. And that always kind of makes the movie take a step down for me whenever I can look at something really early on and go, okay, I know how this is going to go.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think it's a well made movie. And like you, I definitely look forward to anything the director is doing. So I don't know if she has anything in the works or not. I hope she does.
Not that I know of.
Okay. Okay. And so would I recommend it to someone else? I would say yes, depending on who I'm recommending it to. One, I've definitely gotta recommend it to somebody who's gonna be able to sit through those first few minutes, because they are tough, they are brutal, and then also thinking about who I'm speaking to, because just from speaking to people, you get an idea of how they think or what they like and dislike,
Hmm.
and for certain people, this movie might be just too much because of the same reservations that I had with Billy. But
Hmm.
overall, I would say, yeah, it's a definitely a movie that you can watch. Um, and it definitely deals with processing grief, and it is kind of an important movie in that it does talk about some of the things that we don't see as much depicted on film as far as Australia goes.
Yeah. Now I have one question.
Yeah.
The ending of the film. Did you think it was going to end like that? Because to me, I didn't see that. I didn't see the ending come the way it did. To me, I was kind of surprised by how it ended.
The
One
surprise. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say once she found the soldiers.
Okay, so once she found the soldiers, I'll say that I didn't quite expect the I'm trying to do it without spoiling it. Let
Yeah,
me do that.
yeah, because it shouldn't be spoiled.
Right. So I would say I didn't expect her to go quite as far as she did beforehand,
Hmm.
but I knew right away. I knew what Billy was going to do. I knew that.
Yeah.
That part I knew. I just didn't
Okay.
quite her to go quite as far and then not continue. Let me put it that way.
Hmm. Yeah.
So and so yeah, so that's where I am on that one. So that detail on the end, it was a little bit surprising, but the overall ending, I really wasn't.
Okay.
Okay, um, that's really all I have on this movie. Do you have any other last thoughts you want to give on it?
No, I would just pretty much, just reiterate what we both talked about is, I it's a tough watch. throughout the movie. The beginning is really tough, but there's still tough parts throughout it. But I think it's an important film. I thought it's a well done film. It's a well written film. The pacing is great. Um, it did win 6 awards on top of being Best Picture in Australia. Um, and the movie even kind of, I would say, changes genres throughout that. It starts off as a revenge film, cat and mouse film. It goes into psychological horror. It goes into a gothic kind of novel after that. And, even after that, more dramatic of, like I said, with loss and togetherness of the two main characters. So, the movie constantly changes gears throughout the film that I think a lot of people would enjoy it if you can get through the beginning of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If you can get through the beginning, you're set as far as points where you could be like, oh, I can't take it anymore, because that's really it.
I was gonna say, it's like they say, sometimes you gotta risk to get the reward. So it's a
Yeah.
it's a 22-minute risk you got to go through.
Yeah, trial by fire, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, that's really, well, that's it as far as us talking about these two movies, and just see if there's any more comments out here. Still have 6 people here. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I really do. While
As
you're
well.
here, yeah, definitely, like I said a couple times already, but yeah, go sub up to Joe and sub to each other. Like I said, there's some good channels out there represented in the chat. And I think I'm sub to everybody that's in the chat, which is great.
Hmm.
So that means I don't have any
Same.
work to do. So yeah. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and plug anything you want to for your outro. So Joe, the floor is all yours, sir.
Um, I just want to say, thanks for having me on here. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I was nervous when you first asked me, but you know, as we started talking, I felt comfortable being on here, and I had a great time. Um, you know, check me out on Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. But most importantly, make sure anybody who came from me sending to this, make sure you sub to Dell. He does great stuff. I'm sub to him. I really appreciate, everybody that's on here and everybody again that stopped in the chat, even if he said hi. And since she's in the chat, Mika, since you live so close to me, almost like 20 minutes from me, we got to hang again. And I owe you dinner after you paid for a dinner for me and Marie. So, hit me up.
Cool. Mika's gonna get a little bit more shine in here in just a second. Just a couple of comments before I close out completely. And speaking of Mika, she says, I will say you should watch it, even though it's tough watch. Agreed. And she says, great conversation. I really appreciate that, Mika. So just a couple of things for me, for my channel. I will be unavailable for a couple of weeks. I got a lot going on in February, so I won't have another episode of Movie Swap for a few weeks. But when I do, it will be Mika sitting in the guest spot, and that will be February 21st. That'll be February 21st, and just to go beyond that, February 28th, I'm scheduled to have Big Chris from Floyd House Flicks on. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Wait, I gotta say it though. Floyd, say it. All right, so I'm looking forward to those. I do have a haul video coming up. I'm gonna try to get some videos that we'll post next week while I'm away. So I got at least one haul video, maybe two, and also gonna talk about at some point within those next couple of weeks. I'm going to rank every Black-led superhero movie ever made, and you'll be surprised how many of them there are or how few of them will, but you'll have to watch that to find that out. So once again, that's all I have, guys. Thank you for everybody that's here. Thank you to Joe for doing this. I really appreciate it. Maybe we can do it again. If he holds off on watching Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, we might do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would look forward to that. And I'm going to say that's it, guys. Catch you on the next one. Go on.